Hey folks, Jason Weigandt here with Racer X for the latest edition of Fly Racing Rapid News. Over the weekend, Monster Energy AMA Supercross stopped at the Dome in America Center in St. Louis, and Marvin Musquin and RJ Hampshire emerged as the big winners. But they might not have been the biggest story. Many eyes were focused on what is still labeled the Rocky Mountain ATV MC WPS KTM Semi. The team was under heavy rumors to have either closed or folded before the race began. Now, the team did not compete at the previous round of the series at Seattle, but that was understandable. All three riders on the team, Joey Savacci, Shane McElrath, and Max Anstey, were out with injury. However, before St. Louis, both Anstey and McElrath confirmed to us that they were healed up and ready and planning to go racing in St. Louis. Then the rumors began that the team was closing or at least not competing for the weekend. Although they were scheduled to ride Friday's press day session, they were not seen out on the racetrack. And ultimately, neither would compete on race day on Saturday. Now, when an independent team does not compete, the focus usually immediately goes to its sponsorship model, including this team's title sponsor, Rocky Mountain ATV MC. It should be noted that behind the scenes, this team is actually titled Butler Brothers MX, and it started out as a privateer operation for the Butler Brothers in their own Supercross racing days. It has since moved on to acquire several different title sponsors through the years. As for Rocky Mountain ATV MC's side of this, the company explained itself in its fantasy racing podcast leading into the race. What we can tell you right now is that Rocky Mountain ATV MC, we have a contract with the Butler Brothers MX team, and in that contract there were certain requirements. Unfortunately, there was a material breach with the team, and because of that, we have chosen several days ago to terminate our contract with the Butler Brothers MX team. Rocky Mountain also noted that the contract is with the team, not the riders, so they would be unable to aid the riders find other ways to potentially go racing for the weekend, and it would be up to team owner Forrest Butler to try to figure out a way to keep his team going without the sponsorship. But there's a third part to this story beyond just the owner and the team sponsor. In the offseason, Butler had announced a new partner in his race team, Mark McKenzie, who would be investing in the team, and also opening up a slot for his own son, who is an amateur racer currently, to move aboard the team to eventually turn pro. It was expected that McKenzie and Butler would become team co-owners, and it is heavily rumored throughout the industry that McKenzie had paid to wipe out a lot of the debt that the team had incurred in previous racing seasons. The real story here is the fracturing of the relationship between McKenzie and Butler, not the loss of the title sponsor. It also means the situation for McElrath and Anstey are actually different because one was more on the Butler side of the program, McElrath, and Anstey was more on the Mark McKenzie side of the program. From what we can surmise, things began to get more and more complicated behind the scenes between the two, and that included the fact that McKenzie never officially became one of the team co-owners. When we asked Forrest Butler how he would ultimately describe Mark McKenzie's role within the team, he considered him more of a sponsor because he did provide the team with financial support, but did not become ultimately part of its ownership structure. On the record, McKenzie chose to simply say no comment to the situation that has transpired over the last couple of weeks with this race team, but suffice to say this is a typical breakup where the stories on both sides would vary quite differently. With the potential partnership headed toward a divorce, Butler had other situations on his hands, including the breach of contract dating back to Seattle, losing the title sponsor Rocky Mountain, and we also hear losing the support of KTM. But Butler still promised to forge on in race in St. Louis. They changed the social media handles of the team to We Are BBMX for Butler Brothers Motocross, and the team truck and a bike did indeed show up in the pits at St. Louis. Turns out there was a bike already built several weeks ago for McElrath before he was out injured. But then the rumors started to fly that mechanics had gone to the racetrack, and then left the track. While there were said to be enough parts on the semi to build a second bike for Anstey to race alongside McElrath, there wasn't any staff on hand to build that bike. There were also rumors that the team's suspension had been repossessed, but Vital MX's Michael Lindsay spoke to the suspension company, AEO, that sponsors the team, and they indicated that they did leave all suspension components with the team at the track to help support the riders. With multiple staff members either not coming to the event or leaving the event once they had arrived, the team was left with only owner Butler and the team's truck driver on hand. Although the truck, a bike, parts, and the riders were all in attendance, the rumors by Friday night heavily indicated the riders would not be racing on Saturday, and that was indeed the case. First, Anstey parted ways with the team. Then McElrath went to social media to claim that he had not been cleared of the concussion protocol and would not be eligible to race. although that might only be McElrath's way to get out of trying to race the event under such trying circumstances of not having a proven mechanic and having a bike that was built several weeks earlier, not necessarily prepped to race. Throughout the weekend, we reached out to both Anstey and McElrath for clarity and comment. Both elected not to comment. Forrest Butler's BBMX team has been dogged by rumors over the last several years of not paying staff and not paying riders. Blake Baggett, the star rider for the team for several years, simply disappeared from the sport before the 2021 season when he still had a year remaining on his contract with the team. It was thought that the infusion of cash from McKenzie would prevent the team from running into such problems. The BBMX side of the operation has told us that every single rider and staff member has been paid at the beginning of this race season, which started on October 1st of 2021. While the Mark McKenzie side of the operation has not been able to comment, we are surmising that the fracturing of the relationship between Butler and McKenzie and the staff members being on two sides of the operation ultimately led to staffers not coming to the races, which ultimately led to bikes not being on the track, which ultimately led to the team losing its sponsorships. But Butler refused to give up, scouring the privateer pits and looking for an eligible fill-in. At one point, popular KTM privateer Freddie Noren was rumored to potentially take Butler's offer, but he decided to stick with his own effort, and thus the race day in St. Louis began without a BBMX bike on the track for the second race in a row. Butler and his team have been down before, but somehow over nearly a 20-year span, he has found a way to keep the truck on the road and continue to make the races. And when we last spoke to Butler Saturday night in St. Louis, he was still trying to figure out a way to get the team to race in Atlanta, either with McElrath or again searching the privateer ranks. Forrest Butler's race team made a nearly improbable rise from the back of the privateer pits all the way to receive factory support and win an AMA Supercross and AMA Pro Motocross National at the very highest level. Away from the podium glitz and glamour, however, the team has always been dogged by rumors that the pathway from the privateer ranks to the top of the sport has been anything but smooth, although it must be mentioned that the likes of Baggett and other former team members refuse to go on the record to say their side of the story. Right now, though, the team's future can only be written by Butler. He's lost his sponsor, and he has lost his financial backer. If he is to keep his team going and race this weekend in Atlanta, it is up to him and him alone. For this week's Fly Racing Rapid News on Racer X, I'm Jason Weigandt.